Hey, our final speaker before coffee is a person really to whom we all owe a large debt of gratitude, because that person has put together this whole ECAR project, and its effect, as we're hearing today, and its significance is really quite considerable. So, from the Department for Regional Development, ECAR Project Manager, Irene Breen. Irene.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Quentin. Put a bit of pressure on me there. So you've heard from the car manufacturers. So now I'm going to give you a local perspective to ECARs in Northern Ireland. So for the past 2 years, the ECAR project team and the ECAR consortium members have been very, very busy working hard to try and get all of our infrastructure in place and all our ducks in a row to try and what is essentially kick-starting a brand new industry, really, in Northern Ireland. As ECAR project manager, I've been involved now in electric vehicles since, well, about 3 or 4 years. So I'm very, very passionate about this whole area. It is sometimes quite frustrating that, you know, we do get some negativity from the media and so on. But really, I mean, the first question is, well, why are we doing this? Why is Northern Ireland government bringing ECAR to the forefront? So the first thing to look at is our transport challenge here in Northern Ireland, and I would like to start by introducing some facts which will help us understand this challenge. So in 2010, transport accounted for 21% of all greenhouse gas emissions. That makes the transport sector one of the largest greenhouse gas emitting sectors in the whole of Northern Ireland government. Cars and vans play a very important role in this emission profile. And in the blue there on the pie chart, you'll see that it's over 65%, 66% of all transport emissions in cars and vans alone. So one of the reasons why we have such high emissions from cars and vans is partly because of our dependency of them here in Northern Ireland. We do have, as you know, a very dispersed rural population. There's 1.7 million people scattered across Northern Ireland. Parts of Northern Ireland with very low population densities, 65 people per kilometre square. And we also have quite an extensive road network of 25,000 per square kilometre per capita. That's around 2.5 times the rest of the UK. So we have a lot of road, we have a lot of people scattered throughout these roads. So a lot of people are quite dependent on their cars here in Northern Ireland. The figure 80% commute to work by car or van every day. That's in comparison to just over 70% in the rest of the UK. However, it's been mentioned before this morning, and I'll repeat it again, 2/3 of all journeys carried out by car and van in Northern Ireland are less than 5 miles, and 1/5 of all journeys made by car and van are less than 1 mile. Many of these journeys could obviously be done by other sustainable forms of transport, such as walking and cycling and so on. However, our figures indicate that people are still very dependent on the car to take these very, very short journeys. In terms of the economic challenge, rising fuel prices puts a very large financial pressure on all drivers across Northern Ireland. The figure there last year, 760,000 tonnes of petrol and diesel were imported into Northern Ireland, and you have to ask at what cost to our economy. More recently, in the end of February, it was reported that petrol and diesel prices were higher in Northern Ireland than anywhere else in the UK. Yesterday, when we had the kids here from all the different schools across Northern Ireland, I gave the children a bit of a history lesson on petrol prices throughout the different generations before they were born. I explained that back in 1970, petrol was around 34 pence per gallon. By 1990, it had increased to £2.15 per gallon, and today it costs over £6.40 per gallon. So we can see from the price rises throughout the generations, the age of cheap oil is certainly over. And the concept of peak oil, whether it has been reached or whether it is yet to be reached, the fact is petrol, diesel, oil, it's a finite resource and it will eventually run out, and the prices are only going one way. So nowhere does this increasing fuel price have greater impact than on businesses and organisations. And as the Deputy Secretary outlined earlier on, business fleets, be it as large as 200, 2,000, or as small as 2 vehicles, they account for over 60% of all vehicles purchased in the UK. So of course, everyone is looking for ways to reduce costs. In terms of the policy perspective, the Northern Ireland Programme for Government target is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 35% by 2025. Now, that was based on 1990 baseline levels, and from the figures which were recorded in 2010, the transport sector's emissions had actually increased by 26%. So if we are going to achieve these reductions that we need to meet in Northern Ireland, an even greater effort is required by the transport sector. So with businesses purchasing 60% of all new vehicles, you can now see why the role of small and large fleets throughout Northern Ireland are so important in us meeting these targets. Electric vehicles are part of the solution, as we've mentioned earlier. Okay, they may not be for everyone, but however, the Northern Ireland journey profiles tell us that they will suit a large amount of people. Electric cars offer a real opportunity to reduce the carbon output of the transport sector here in Northern Ireland, as they emit zero emissions, as you all know. Most people will charge their cars at night when there is a higher proportion of electricity generated from wind. And of course, the growth of the generation of electricity from renewable sources offers a route towards carbon neutral motoring. And you may know we have targets of 40% renewable energy by 2020 on these islands. So the graph on the right, this graph shows a year-on-year rise in the cost of fuel since 2002. That's the blue line at the top. In the past 3 years, this has increased by 39% fuel price. The purple line at the bottom shows a year-on-year rise in the cost of electricity. According to the Energy Savings Trust, the indications are that these trends will continue. So you can see that they've extrapolated future costs based on previous price rises to demonstrate where the financial impact will be in 2014 and onwards. So really what this graph is telling us is that by choosing a vehicle powered by electricity rather than by petrol or diesel, it could future-proof you against hard-hitting fuel rises. So who is ECAR and what are we doing this for? So you heard from the Deputy Secretary this morning and the Minister for the Environment, both who have given a very clear commitment to support the development of the market for electric vehicles in order to create a transport system that will create growth and reduce carbon. Back in 2010, both departments came together to form a consortium to bid in a competitive process to win funding from OLEV. The bid was successful, and we have been awarded 1.6 million grant funding from the Office of Low Emission Vehicles, and you'll hear from OLEV later on. There's 28 members of the consortium in total, all who provide match funding, and the consortium member structure really has been a great benefit to the ECAR project overall. Not only have all the councils and electricity sector and motor sector, not only have they invested money, time and effort, but they have been real true advocates to electric vehicles, and they believe in the vision of the growth of electric cars in Northern Ireland. So in terms of our infrastructure, there's 3 different types of charge point. So I'll just give you a quick run through what they are. The first one are rapid charge points, and the green dot shows you there that we've got 6 installed so far. So these charge points will charge vehicles 80% of their full capacity in 20 to 25 minutes. You don't need an access card. It's a fixed cable which is attached to the charge point, very similar to a petrol pump. When you insert the charge point, the charging lead into the car, it's very secure, so it's locked in. These locations are also going to roll out in 8 more locations in the next few months. So in total, we'll have 14 of these rapid charge points. The next one is the standard public charge points. So each charger has 2 points. You can charge 2 cars simultaneously. Last year we installed 40 of these, or 80 points, and this year we're installing another 120 or 240 points. So these installations will be complete in the next few weeks by the end of April. So you can see there, they're pretty much all over Northern Ireland. We also have legislation in place in DRD car parks and on street to ensure that it is dedicated for electric vehicle charging only. And that's quite important to ensure that whenever EV drivers drive along, that they actually can park at the charge points. And there are some locations where this legislation is in place, so Northern Ireland is quite advanced in this. Also, just quickly to mention, there's lots of videos on our ECAR website which will show you how to use the charge points, so a foolproof guide if you need any more information on how to use them. So what does this infrastructure look like overall? Well, ECAR Northern Ireland is actually one of the most comprehensive electric vehicle networks in the world. The majority of people, as you have heard this morning, will be no more from 10 miles from a standard charge point and 30 miles from a rapid charge point. So we are covered for EV driving from now on. You will hear from ESB ECARs later on this afternoon, who will be talking about the international aspect of our network. But basically, all of our infrastructure, north and south, are completely compatible. You can use an ECAR access card in Belfast to open the same charge point in Cork. You can travel anywhere on this island using the same infrastructure, or the same access cards. OLEV will also be speaking later on about a new grant that they've recently announced for installation of further charge points in Northern Ireland for the public sector. So I would just urge anyone who's interested in this grant to come and talk to the ECAR team, because we want to ensure, having worked so hard to ensure compatibility, we want to ensure that any future charge points are compatible with our existing network. Finally, the third charge point type, and anticipated the most frequently used, is the home and workplace charge point. About 80 to 90% of all charging is done at home. So this is what some people would call a slow charge point. It takes 6 to 8 hours to charge your cars at 16 amp or half the time on 32 amp. I'm pleased to say that we will continue to provide this grant for the next year until March 2014. It's at a cost of £1,500, which should more than cover the cost of the installation, so essentially it's a free home charge point. It's available to the first 180 electric vehicle buyers, so that's 90 domestic customers and 90 workplace customers. And then when that expires next year, OLEV also will have another grant in place to provide 75% funding for domestic charge points. So the next 2 years, there's a lot of incentives there for EV driving. The department recently carried out a survey on the attitudes and awareness of electric vehicles in Northern Ireland. The purpose of this survey was to benchmark people's awareness, really, of electric vehicles now that we are at the start of our journey. Really, the survey did highlight that there is a lack of understanding out there, and for example, only 12% of people were aware that it costs between £1 and £3 to charge an EV. Most people thought it was much more expensive than that. As Quentin said earlier, 92% of people in Northern Ireland said they would not buy an electric car. But again, you have to ask the question, how many of those people have actually driven one? 7% said they would consider buying an electric car as their next purchase. I think the good news out of this survey is that it gives us the opportunity to understand what information the consumer needs, and it tells us really over the next year how we can deliver this information to them. We were conscious as the ECAR project not to go out too soon to market electric vehicles because our infrastructure wasn't in place and we didn't want to give people the reasons to say no. So now that the infrastructure is in place, now that there's lots of different cars at different price points, you know, there aren't many reasons, or there aren't many excuses left, so to speak. So from now on, over the next year, I think you'll see a lot more of ECAR trying to engage with customers and answer these questions that they have. We're also keeping track of organisations who've purchased electric vehicles to date. So I'm going to show you a video now of 4 local organisations who have made the switch to electric vehicles. These 4 organisations are Belfast Health Trust, who have 8 electric vans, Fermanagh Council, who have 3 electric vans, Craigavon, who purchased 1 van, and Business in the Community, who also operate an electric car. There are many more businesses and organisations out there who operate electric fleets. And you'll see maybe the Northern Ireland Police Service, whose Vauxhall Ampera is sitting outside. And also, of course, there's lots of private households in Northern Ireland with Amperas and Fluences, Nissan Leafs, Peugeot Ions, and many others. But hopefully this video will show you how electric vehicles can suit certain aspects of the needs of fleets in Northern Ireland while saving money and reducing carbon emissions. We didn't tell those people to say those things. That was their own opinion. And I can say that, you know, we did meet some of those organisations before they took on their electric cars. And, you know, obviously they were somewhat reluctant, but look at them now and listen to them now. Okay, I'm almost finished, but I just wanted to point out we have our ECAR website, which is now live. So go online and have a look, www.ecarni.com. We also have a mobile website, so when you click on that, you can, it's sort of like a mobile phone app that you can go in and look at all the charge points. The other item there in the bottom left corner is our cost calculator, and I would encourage everyone, especially business fleets obviously, to go in and compare your weekly fuel costs on this calculator. It will take the information and use your mileage and use your mile per gallon rate and change it into the electricity costs. So basically you should see that you will have roughly an 80% saving. So obviously when you add those things up, it's quite significant. Although, oh yes, that little thing is telling me to tell you that go online and have a look at our Facebook page and our YouTube page as well. There's lots more information online, and those videos that you've seen today, both the animation and the talking heads, are all on our YouTube page. So although ECAR is in its early days, the ECAR consortium, we're all very grateful to receive some awards recently. We got joint first in the Action Renewable Award for outstanding work in the renewable energy sector in Northern Ireland, which we were all very much delighted to achieve. And we were also a finalist in the UK Climate Week Awards this week for Best Initiative by a government body. So that certainly shows the effect that our good infrastructure is having. So finally, I would just like to finish by telling you about the interesting day which we had yesterday, the Schools Day. So the ULEV strategy, which you'll hear about from OLEV later on today, provides us with an insight to a world where all vehicles will be ultra-low emission by 2050. So therefore, we felt that it was necessary that we engage with the next generation, the generation who will make the transition from petrol and diesel to electric and other forms of low-emission vehicles in their lifetime. So this is the generation of children. This generation of children are highly connected, so they've grown up with smart technology and charging solutions and so on. And we have to say the children were excellent, and the questions that they had and the interest that they had yesterday was incredible. Not only did they take a car for a test drive, but they took every single type of car that they could drive out there for a test drive. And according to the guys who are sitting in the cars with them, they all absolutely loved the experience, bar none. So as I said to the children yesterday, go online to the ECAR website, use the cost calculator, compare your weekly fuel cost, your petrol and diesel cost with an electric car. The public charge points are here. The rapid charge points are nearly all here. There's lots of electric vehicles in Northern Ireland now at various different price points. So go out and consider your range, plan your journey, and give some serious consideration to whether electric cars are for you or for your organisation. Thank you.